We are starting today in the town of Bisbee, Arizona, and we're going to travel on Highway 80 from Bisbee east, and then it goes into New Mexico. We go north, and we kind of straddle the Arizona-New Mexico line until the end of the highway. We're just going to see what we can find, small towns along the way. Smaller the better, the more remote the better. If you go west and north of here, you're going to go to Tombstone. And so that's kind of the busier probably part of the road. And the eastern part, I'm thinking probably isn't as busy because there's not a lot of towns that way, especially once you get a few miles down the way. So I've never been in this area of Arizona before, so I'm excited to check it out. I got my shirt here from Chris, funny guy. Yes, he made that for me. So thank you, Chris. Good shirt, haha. So let's go ahead and check out the first town, which is basically part of Bisbee. I did a video previously just driving through Bisbee. If you haven't seen that, kind of a scenic drive through Bisbee. It's an incredibly scenic part of Arizona. But just on the south of Bisbee, which is technically still part of Bisbee, is Lowell. And it's a historic area, but we're surrounded by mining, a mining community. And you can see here where I'm actually starting is what's called the pit. And it's this giant hole in the ground caused by mining. And the town of Lowell, or the community there, is being kind of overtaken by the mining. And I think the businesses are going to have to shut down probably because the mining company owns all of that land now. And I think it's hard to keep those places with the regulations that you have to keep them in business. So I think this is probably the last days of it actually being an actual community with businesses. But hopefully they'll keep the buildings and it'll be somewhere you can visit here within the southern part of Bisbee. So let's go ahead and get on the road. Let's check out Lowell, and then we'll get heading east. As we get started to check out Lowell, I want to show you an overhead view of that historic area and how close it is to the big pit right there above it. And right above that, you can barely see the town of Bisbee way up in the top left corner of the screen. Bisbee got started in the 1870s, but in 1899, Frank Hanchett of Lowell, Massachusetts purchased property and started the Lowell, Arizona Copper Mining and Smelting Company. First business in Lowell was built in 1900. By 1902, a tent community was formed near the mine, and then Erie Street was established as a business and social center. 1904, Lowell got a post office. They tried to incorporate in 1906, but only 35 of the needed 80 property owners signed the petition. So the post office closed in 1907, and 1908, Lowell was annexed into Bisbee. By that year, Erie Street had 8 saloons where miners could quench their thirsts, and there were several other houses of ill repute that provided female companionship. By 1920, Lowell had over 6,000 people living in the community. It continued to hold on as a residential and business area the next few years, but slowed during the Great Depression as the value of copper declined. After that, the development of the Lavender Pit involved the area occupied by Lowell and other small suburbs of Bisbee. More than 250 homes and 20 businesses needed to be moved. Residents were offered the option of either receiving the market value for their home, which would then be demolished, or the company would pay to have the structures moved to a new site. There were several other towns created by this, and by 1957, there were few people living in Lowell. By 1959, all of these local towns were annexed into Bisbee. A couple miles to the south of Lowell is Warren. It had a post office, started in 1907, still has one to this day. Has the distinction of being Arizona's first planned community. Although there were mines Operating in the vicinity, it was primarily designated as a bedroom community for the more affluent citizens of the mining district. Has this historic ballpark. It's the oldest multi-sport ballpark in the United States. So, little detour from Route 80, but wanted to shoot down and check that out. And then as we head back towards Lowell, they have a couple interesting buildings, and there's this little community between the two towns. So, there were these people that got displaced from Lowell because of the mining and, Bisbee and Lowell area into different places. And so you see some old houses, some old businesses along this little area. And here we're getting back up towards where Lowell is. Obviously, this is some evidence of the mining. So now we're looking east, and that's the way Highway 80 goes. We're going to go that direction. That's more of Lowell, basically. And this is a really nice school, the Lowell School. So I'm guessing this is the school for the whole area, including Bisbee and Lowell and these little communities. And they have a cool thing called the Shady Dell over here. It's got just a bunch of unusual things to check out, and the nice place to eat as well. It's right here between the school and the cemetery. Some Airstreams and different just interesting places. I'm guessing you can do some maybe camping or RV kind of stuff. There's a nice place to get some lunch, and then like I said, the cemetery is right next to this. 80 goes that way. There's a road here called Paul Spur because there's something called Paul Spur that way. Looks like there's some sort of historical marker over here, kind of hidden. Mormon LDS Church Battalion, Smith Grave, 2 miles south, buried December 7, 1846. I know that's not the Joseph Smith grave, so I wonder what Smith grave that is. 2 miles south is about that way. We're not that far from Mexico. I mean, you can't see it, but 2 miles is probably on this side of the mountains over there. I don't know. You might know what Smith is buried way out in the middle of nowhere. That is Paul Spur. Let's drive down there and see what that is. So obviously that's a mining operation. Hoist North America, Douglas plant. We're not too far from Douglas. And like I said, this said on the map it was called Paul Spur. Makes me think it was a railroad stop at some point. They do have something over here. So it could have been a hotel or something. Possibly the railroad stopped here. Has no trespassing signs everywhere, so I'm not going to really go too close, but pretty cool, Paul Spur. We're approaching the largest city today here in Douglas, but this is on the northwest side of Douglas. This is called Purtlesville. It's had a post office since 1910 and was started because of mining. And this is basically where the lesser paid Hispanic miners lived. And so the houses were smaller, there wasn't pavement in this area, and it was definitely a substandard kind of area of housing that was separate from Douglas and still is today. There's the wall, and there's another wall on this side. You can see people lined up over there. The U.S. Army established Camp San Bernardino in the latter half of the 19th century, and in 1910 Camp Douglas was built next to the town. And Douglas was founded as a smelter town to treat the copper ores of nearby Bisbee. Named for the mining pioneer James Douglas, who was incorporated in 1905. In 1916, the Mexican revolutionary leader Pancho Villa threatened to attack Douglas, believing Americans responsible for his defeat at the Second Battle of Agua Prieta, which is right across the border. In 1989, the Sinaloa cartel dug a 300-foot tunnel between a house in Agua Prieta to a warehouse located in Douglas that it used to smuggle drugs across the international border, and it was discovered in 1990. And the town has been physically divided from Agua Prieta with the tall border wall built under President George W. Bush. Population has generally gone up throughout the years and has had a peak of 17,378 in 2010, went down just slightly in the last census. There was definitely more traffic between Bisbee and Douglas than I thought there would be. I guess that's probably, there's still, Douglas is pretty big, so, there's going to be traffic, I guess. But after that, it's been pretty wide open. Really beautiful, wide open road, not too much traffic. Perfect. I saw on the map that this was called North Dangerous Road. We're now in the small community of Apache, and this is the site of the Geronimo Surrender Monument. It's dedicated to the site of the Native American Geronimo's surrender and the end of the Native American Wars in the United States. And just down the road from that monument is Apache. It had a post office from 1908 till 1943. And there's not much left. There is one older looking historic building on the side of the road here. Population was about 40 in 1940 and got smaller after that. But they still have a elementary school right here, and it was recorded in 2018 that they had 8 students. As you can see, we are crossing over into New Mexico temporarily, and this is the very small community of Rodeo. It's had a post office since 1903, and it was founded as a rail stop on the El Paso and Southwestern Railroad that ran from Bisbee to El Paso, Texas. It became the center for cattle shipping in the area, and that's obviously how it got its name of Rodeo. Very cool little community. Take a little detour off of New Mexico Road 90, and as we do that, we're crossing right back into Arizona, going into the community of Portal. And they have a nice little general store and restaurant here, and some interesting things to see, and looks like they maybe have some live music in this area. But Portal was originally a mining area. Post office dated back to 1905. It's a very popular location for birding in southeastern Arizona, and this general store is a popular place to stop and check out, and I had a really good sandwich at this place. The Arizona Sky Village Astronomy Community is located here because the skies in the area are virtually free of light pollution. As we head back towards Road 90, you can see we're back in New Mexico now, and they have a Chiricahua Desert Museum here. I did not go into the museum, but it did look quite interesting. I was starting to run out of daylight and needed to head on down the road to finish up the trip. We've made it to the end of our trip here on Highway 80 in Arizona and New Mexico. We are in Road Forks, New Mexico. And obviously it got that name probably because there were a couple of roads here. It's not much of a community anymore. I think it was started in the 1920s, so about 100 years old. It's basically a stop on the interstate, and that's where our trip will end today. So really cool scenic drive. The beginning with Bisbee, some of those towns or those communities right around Bisbee was very interesting, very unique. And then later on, seeing the wall, you don't see that all the time, but that was cool. And then Rodeo and Portal. That was a pretty cool trip. I always enjoy visiting Arizona and New Mexico, and this is a good way to kind of combine them into one. Certainly very scenic, especially the last half once you are in the eastern edge of Arizona and the western part of New Mexico. Really cool, fun day exploring Highway 80. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And now that you're here, let me tell you a little bit about some of the extras that we have on the channel. One of the things you can do is you can become a member. There's 3 levels. There's the supporter level, there's the producer level, and the executive producer level. And all 3 levels have different perks, and as you are more supportive financially, there's more perks. We have extra videos every week and a lot of fun stuff going on in the member section. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. We've got lots of extra stuff on there, and one of the things is merchandise. You can get you Travel with a Wise Guy t-shirt. We have Death Go Round t-shirts. We have some coffee mugs, different things that are a lot of fun, and people seem to have enjoyed. Good quality there. Also on the website, you can do things like check out the Google map. I have a pin dropped in every place I've done videos about, then a link to the video so you can look at the map, and maybe there's somewhere where you live or somewhere you want to go. You can check out that map, and it seemed to be a very popular thing. You can sign up for my newsletter. I do that about every 3 weeks. It's totally free. And there's also all kinds of other links and tidbits in there, old videos, podcasts, just everything I could think of I throw on the website. So make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. There was definitely more traffic between, can't talk, I just ate a peanut butter kind bar.